some very interesting things at the Sarah Boone trial yesterday. You're not going to want to miss today's episode. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Crafting and Crime Daily. I'm your host, Rebecca, and I recap live trials while wearing my Happy Hallow Thanksmas shirt with the gnomes. So I got all my bases covered here. So let's talk about what occurred on day 5 of the testimony in the Sarah Boone case. She's on trial for allegedly murdering her fiance by putting him in a suitcase. And, well, that's the high level. He put himself in the suitcase during the game of hide and seek, and she zipped him into it and then didn't let him out. And we now know that she was taking a baseball bat and poking him, and he had blood force trauma to his body. So he died of positional asphyxia and environmental suffocation. He ran out of oxygen, basically. So the defense is putting on their case. Sarah Boone took the stand, and the first witness yesterday was Officer Delgado. She is an Orange County deputy sheriff. She responded to a domestic disturbance at the apartment of Sarah and George on July 25th of 2019. And she found red marks and abrasions around the neck of George, and she had a black eye, or bruising around her right eye. Bruising. She called it bruising. So Sarah was arrested and put into the back of the patrol car. And as they're going to the police station, she's like, why am I being arrested? Is it because I fought back? So the defense stops their questioning. Prosecution gets up on cross-examination and says, when you make an arrest, you assess the situation and you take into account all of the information that you get. Everybody's interviewed. Yes, yes. And that's what you're basing your arrest on. Yes. No more questions. So I'm just saying, who was the aggressor here? According to the police, it was her. Then we had Officer John Alden, who responded, another Orange County deputy sheriff. He responded out to the apartment building on August 28th of 2019, 1 month later, on a battery call. Sarah had redness around the right side of her neck, and George had redness on his left eye. Guess who was arrested this time? George. Good Lord, these two. They could not get along. Some people should not drink alcohol, you think? Anyway, then we get the lead detective back on the stand, called by the defense. So she was asked, did you have any opportunity to interview a Mr. Morena? Now, Mr. Morena is the guy that took the stand during the prosecution's case in chief. He was the maintenance man for the apartment building, and he went over and he saw Sarah sitting there. The detectives were already there. This is the day of the discovery of the suitcase murder. Detectives are on the scene. Sarah's sitting on the curb. I think that this detective was in her car doing a report or something. And Marina goes over to talk to Sarah, and she tells him that, she was teaching him a lesson and that things got out of hand. Then she passed out. Now, of course, this detective, I don't remember that. Did you interview him? Is that what he told you? I don't remember. You want your report to refresh your recollection? Oh, okay. So she found the report and she said, yeah, he told her that. Well, didn't he also tell you that She was dragged down the stairs a couple of days prior to that. Now, this is something I forgot to tell you guys about her testimony. So there's been testimony from those roommates that live next door that they heard this loud thumping noise, something coming down the stairs the night that she claims that they were playing hide and seek. Now, my question was this the suitcase thumping down the stairs with him in it? Her explanation when she took the stand was that the night prior to this, when they had that first half a bottle of wine, he had grabbed her by the hair and drug her down the stairwell. And that's what they heard. And they just had their nights mixed up. So going back to this lead detective, the defense attorney wanted to know, did you know this? And she had to admit she did, because it's in her report. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. Anyway, but because I'm going back to Sarah saying, oh, everything was great, lots of good days, I don't know. How is that a good day if he's dragging you down the staircase? And then you get up the next morning and you're just going to have this lovely day? I don't know, whatever. Okay. Besides the fact that if he drug you, he pulls your hair, drugs you down the staircase, you're going to have some marks somewhere, aren't you? And she didn't have anything on her body. So the next person that took the stand was Dr. Michael Brandon, a forensic psychologist. And interestingly enough, I don't always tell you guys about the experts' qualifications because it's lengthy and it's, they always talk about where they went to school and how long they've been doing this and what their specialization, it just goes on and on because they have to qualify them as experts. But I took particular notice of this guy because he went to the same place that I went to law school, Nova Southeastern University in South Florida. Anyway, forensic psychology. I'm sorry. Yeah, psychology, not psychiatry. Those are doctors. This is a psychologist. So he was saying that battered women syndrome is not in the DSM-5. Now, DSM-5 is like the holy grail book for psychiatrists and psychologists. It has all the diagnoses that you could possibly think of, except for battered women syndrome in there. And he said, no, it's actually a reaction, it's actually part of and related to a trauma disorder, PTSD. So apparently most people who are found to have this battered woman's syndrome, which is also known as now as intimate partner violence, because it can involve same-sex marriages and same-sex relationships as well. And it could be the man, not the woman. So they call it now intimate partner violence. And it's all related to trauma. So it's considered a trauma disorder and it's considered PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. So nothing called battered women syndrome in this book. So he talked about the diagnosis. He says this is a reaction to abuse. When a person cannot effectively escape from the abuse, they develop coping mechanisms. And they strategize ways to handle the situation. So it's not just like one-time abuse. This is abuse over a period of time. That's one of the features of this syndrome. Another feature is coercive control. Now, coercive control could be where they're, they've got all the money in the relationship. They've got the vehicle in the relationship. Starting to sound familiar here. But on the other hand, it could also be threatening the dogs, things like that. So Interestingly enough, I'm thinking, oh, wow, did you evaluate Sarah Boone? No, you can't come to this diagnosis unless you've done a comprehensive evaluation. And I'm thinking, why in the heck are we putting this guy on the stand if he didn't do the comprehensive evaluation? And it turns out, apparently, it was just to talk about what this syndrome is. He says that threats to pets are very common in this syndrome. And he did agree that the perception that the victims have in this syndrome of danger does change. And that's going to be explained later on. So we're going to get back to that. I'm trying to read my own writing. Oh, cross-examination. So he did agree you need a comprehensive evaluation in order to get the full picture. He said there's also other syndromes in the DSM that, such as alcohol abuse disorder and narcissistic personality disorder. So that was it. And I'm thinking, what? Wait, that's it? That's it? Where's the evaluation? He didn't do one. So why are we putting him on the stand? So I'm thinking, okay, it's just to educate the jury about battered women syndrome. Okay. And then I guess there were some witnesses that the defense had planned to call. They were sitting out in the hallway, and then they decided, no, we're not going to call them. So each time something like that happens, because Sarah Boone has been so difficult, during the pretrial period about her representation, the judge will go through this colloquy with her. He'll say, are you on board with the representation that you have? And do you understand that the decision to not call witnesses is that of your attorney? Are you satisfied with that decision? And then finally, are you still on board with your defense? Yes, I am. So he's done that several times because I guess he just doesn't want it to backfire on him. And every time she said, yeah, I'm happy with it. I understand. I'm on board. Okay. So then we get some more extractions from her phone, some more videos from her phone. They call back the same digital forensic examiner, and they show a couple of videos, and I'm going to show them to you. But it's just weird. I'm like, what is going on here? The first video, you'll see George Torres, and he's got a bat. And he's just saying something to her, like, you got to take this out or something. I don't know. It didn't make any sense to me. Then the second video, obviously the same day, he's taking that bat and just hammering the television set, which is why there was no TV when the police got there. But there was no context to these videos. I don't know when those videos were taken. Yeah, I don't know. When did this happen? What was going on? No context to those videos whatsoever.
You're gonna help me take this shit out. Real shit. You're gonna help me take it out. You're gonna help me take this shit out. As fast as I want to.
Judge, I'm asking to publish Exhibit 18.
You may proceed.
Then they take a break he sends the jury to lunch early because the next witness is not there yet. Now, I apologize. This witness was out in the hall, but she was still in line, or he had to take a break while she went through the security line. And now I know why. They bring her in, and she's about 90 years old in a wheelchair. Bless her heart. They wheel her in. Judge says something to her, and she can't hear him. So he speaks a little louder, and she's like, oh, hi. So I'm sorry, it was really funny. So she lived in the same apartment building for 4 years next to this couple. And Sarah and George lived in Unit 3. She lived 5 units down in Unit 8. So when Sarah would walk her Boston Terriers at night, Penny and Taz, she'd call her over, "Hey, how you doing, Sarah?" And they would talk for 10 or 15 minutes. So she observed one time that she looked like she had been choked around her neck. Her arm was hurt. There was one time where she saw that Sarah had a black eye. And then she said, she was asked, did she give you an explanation for that? And she goes, well, she said, she was upset, but she said, it was just one of them days. Just one of them days. So then she was asked, did she appear intoxicated? And she goes, I can't say. Why can't you say? Anyway, so it really just boils down to 2 instances. She saw her with a black eye, and she saw her one time when it looked like she'd been choked and her arm was hurt. Then she kind of blurted out at some point, there was one time when the dogs were barking, so they must have been going at it. She didn't really know George. She didn't see him very often. And that was it. That was it. Thank you very much. And she's like, am I done? Yeah, honey, you're done. It was such a train wreck. Like, how many doors did they knock on before they found her? Like, hey. Oh, God. Anyway, so then they take an early lunch because the next witness is not there yet. So, or not expected till like 1:00. And it's a forensic psychologist. And as it turns out, she had flown from somewhere else in Florida and got in very late the night before because she had been testifying in another trial yesterday. So she did do a comprehensive evaluation on Sarah Boone. Comprehensive psychological evaluation. She met with her 9 times, and I'm thinking, 9 times? Wow. Well, then we find out on cross-examination, it really wasn't 9 times. It was like 5 times, because 2 of those days they had lunch and she came back. So she considered the morning and afternoon session different times. So that's 4. So 5 times. 5 times? Yeah. Anyway. Or 7 times. I can't do math. I'm sorry, I can't do math. Okay. So she said that she does have some narcissistic traits, but only 3 of the 9 that are listed in the DSM. And of those 9, you have to have at least 5 of the traits to have that diagnosis. And one of the traits she has was she likes to identify what makes her stand out. Like, oh, I was a straight A student. And she says all of this is because she has very low self-esteem. So she diagnosed her with post-traumatic stress disorder stemming from anxiety. She has not much family support. She was tested for malingering. What's malingering? Are you faking this? Are you giving me really good information? And she did. There are tests that will ferret that out, and she passed those tests. Okay. So she said she had trauma as a result of the intimate partner violence. At the time of the incident, she was suffering from alcohol use disorder and depression. And that alcohol is often involved in this domestic, what did I call it? Intimate partner violence. Intimate partner violence. Either by the victim or the perpetrator or both. So she said there's 3 stages to this PTSD. And the 3rd stage is where this battered women syndrome. The 3rd stage is where the final stage, and this is where she thought Sarah was, is trying to, you're very hopeful because you want to maintain the relationship. You're trying to believe that the behavior has changed, and your belief is that you're not going to be abused again. And forgiveness. And all of that was evidenced by her interrogation, and really by the interrogation. She did talk a lot and I didn't show that to you, but she talked a lot in the interrogation about, he's taken these classes. He thinks the information's very useful. Things were starting to change. And the reason I mentioned that is because she also said some of these things on the stand, but she said them early on during an interrogation. So, because my thought was, well, she must have read that same book that her attorney read. So she knows what to say. But she said them during her interrogation just a few days after the murder. Yeah. And that, she loved him and she's trying to support him and try to help him become a better person and blah, blah, blah. Okay. So I really thought one of the things she said was she uses her words as a weapon. But I want you to hear a little snippet of what the psychologist said, because she can say it way better than I can. Here you go.
Forgive. That's part of that last stage, phase 3, is maintaining the relationship.
I don't think I've asked this. Why would someone who has been exposed to intimate partner violence perceive the likelihood of a new violent event about to appear? Why would they perceive the likelihood of that violence differently than, say, a normal person?
Well, it speaks to the pattern. So any relationship will have its own special pattern, that you have things that only your partner knows about you, or certain looks that you give that mean something, and you learn that over time. So over a period of incidents, basically, the victim begins to perceive cues that would signal impending danger. Those cues could be really subtle, just a change in tone or some small behavior that might not mean much to another person, but it has preceded other violent acts. So for instance, if your husband decides that he is not going out that night, he might put on different clothes to stay home. And that could be a signal, like abuse and violence has occurred in his stay-at-home clothes. For instance, that might not mean much to another person because, again, it's specific to that dyad. Those two people know those patterns. So the victim may perceive a small or subtle change in their partner as a cue because they've become hypervigilant. The body knows when it's experienced a threat to itself, and it will take note. We record memories differently when we're at risk. So these subtle cues become very well memorized by somebody who's being victimized.
On this, and battered spouse syndrome is a subset of post-traumatic stress disorder, which you diagnosed Sarah Boone with. When those personality changes occur, and they persist after an individual has been exposed to this extreme stress, is that when the diagnosis occurs?
The changes would be as a result of the pattern. The person experiences a change, like in their sleeping, in their hypervigilance. That's when you can diagnose it. So you can have a trauma or an experience of, scary incident, but it doesn't mean that you will absolutely have post-traumatic stress disorder. You have to have those reactive symptoms that would suggest that it's present.
In your opinion, and I know you've gone over this event with Sarah Boone, this February 23rd, 2020 event. Is your opinion that she was suffering from battered spouse syndrome at the time of that event?
Yes, she had the patterns ingrained in her behavior that would be typical of a victim who's responding to traumatic events in a predictable way. So that would fit that.
And it's fair to say that because of the intimate partner and the prior violence, that you would have a heightened sense of when danger was about to occur.
Yes.
When a threat was about to occur.
Yes.
Threat of danger.
That's right.
Interesting. Now, here's what I would love to know from you in the comments. Is any of this resonating with you? Are we starting to lean towards not guilty based on this testimony? Is this a case of self-defense? Because battered women syndrome is a self-defense. Okay. So on cross-examination, he listed things that people can do to exert control. And here's why he's doing it. When we come back tomorrow, or today, actually, when they come back today, because the defense is expected to rest their case this morning, and then the prosecution will start their rebuttal testimony. During the rebuttal, I fully expect that what he's going to do is shift the blame. He's going to call Sarah the one controlling George, and here's what she was doing to control him. That he's the one that was probably suffering from the, what do they call it? Intimate partner violence. I don't know why this won't stick into my brain. Anyway. So, here's the other thing. Some of the things that this woman based her diagnosis on predated her relationship with George. So are we going to hear from her ex-husband again? I don't know. She was Baker acted twice. Now, what does that mean, Baker acted? That's where you are held for 72 hours in a psych facility while you're evaluated. You have to be deemed to be a harm to yourself or to others to be held that way, and you're held against your will. Doesn't matter whether you want to leave or not. For 72 hours, you are captive. You're there while you're evaluated. And she went through that twice. So, where is all this going? I just told you they're going to blame her as the perpetrator of the intimate partner violence. So that's it for today. Like I said, the state or the defense is resting their case this morning. I don't think they have any additional witnesses. The state will present their rebuttal today. If they're likely going to finish at a time early enough so they can do their charging conference, which is where they go over the jury instructions. The jury's not present for that. Tomorrow morning will be the closing arguments. I will go live for those, with those for you, if you want. All right. Have a wonderful day, and I'll be coming at you with another video on the Delphi murder case because the drama continues. Take care, everybody. Bye.